Welcome to Coffee with the President. We are here in Baltimore, Maryland at Morgan State University, and I am joined by the president. Thank you so much for having coffee with me, Dr. Wilson.
All right, Desi, it's a pleasure.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
So we always like to sit down with the president to just talk a little bit about what you feel is the Morgan experience. So in your opinion, what sets Morgan State apart from all of the other HBCUs and colleges and universities out there?
Yeah, first of all, we are delighted that you're featuring our institution, our students, and the incredible experience that our students have here at Morgan on College Tour. So, the experience here at Morgan, I think, is unmatched in, I think, all of our head.
Yeah.
I have been around the horn. I've been at major TWIs in the country, and I visited, I don't know, about 75 of the HBCU campuses, and so I think I have a pretty good sense of that. Here, students actually can go as far as their imagination will enable them to think, right? And that's because they are coming into an environment, where the soil was so rich, where seeds were planted, 156 years ago, and now these very strong oak trees have emerged, and they realize the moment they get here that, I know what time it is.
Yeah.
It's climbing time.
Yeah.
And so they can climb to any height that they want to from the foundation of Morgan State University. And I have seen that firsthand. And the students here, they have like 200 or so student organizations that they can participate in. But we say to them on day one, when you arrive here, if none of those organizations is speaking to you, then you can go out and you can form a group of students who are saying, this is what we want.
Right.
And there are no obstacles in place to prevent you from doing what you want.
Yeah, well, Dr. Wilson, I have to say that we've been so impressed by your students here on campus. I mean, every last one of them talking about their study abroad opportunities to their research. As someone who comes from an HBCU background, we don't always hear HBCU students talking about doing research and studying abroad. So how have you really intertwined that in the Morgan experience, and why is that so important to the students here?
What has really surprised me, and I don't know why I'm surprised by this, by my own students, because they are stunningly brilliant, is that we started about 5 or 6 years ago talking about R1, and Morgan should become an R1, a very high research institution. And normally this kind of stuff would fly right past an undergrad. It would fly right past master's and doctoral students to a certain extent. Well, we began to talk with our undergraduate students about why that was important for them in terms of their own undergraduate experience and the kind of opportunities they would have to work with professors in laboratory settings and research settings. Well, fast forward, you go on campus now and you start talking with students about, what's the co-vision of Morgan? They can talk about becoming an R1 very high research institution better than the president can.
That's amazing. It's amazing transformation.
Yeah, and so our students, they understand the value of innovation. They understand how important it is to be in an environment that supports ideation. They really do understand that a college experience is not just being in a lecture hall and absorbing information. It is not, if you will, a rote experience at Morgan.
Right.
No, it's a very integrated process, and it involves, if you will, yes, the classroom experience, but also research, innovation, ideation, and then how you take all of that and apply that in a service context, to real situations in the Baltimore area. And our students do that better than any other students I've seen across the higher education space.
Yeah, it's certainly impressive. And when we do the college tour, we often try to talk about the culture of the school. And your school has such a rich culture. The city of Baltimore has such a rich culture. But I'd like to take a step back and talk a little bit about where you came from, because I think I've done a little bit of research, and I think it is a powerful story. You are so impressive, and it's so impressive to hear about research, but I think to some students who might be at home watching this, it might also be a bit intimidating to hear about such a dynamic research institution. So can you talk a little bit about your background and how you went from small town in Alabama to now being the president of a university like Morgan State, and how somebody else might be able to follow that path?
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact. And That is really one of the unique things I think I bring to the presidency here is the path that I've traveled to get here. And so, youngest of 10 children,
Wow.
grew up in abject poverty in rural Alabama, did not go to school full time until I was in the seventh grade.
Until the seventh grade?
Yes, because at that time, Alabama did not have laws that required Black children to go to school.
Wow.
And so my father was a sharecropper, and we grew cotton, and he needed his children to help him to pick the cotton and to uh, make the soil ready to plant the seeds. And so consequently, we would stay out of school 3 days a week, and then he would go two, and then he would reverse it the next week. So that's sort of what shaped my early
Wow.
educational experience.
Mhm.
And so when I got a chance to go full time in the seventh grade, I began to understand the value of education and what that could mean beyond high school. And I arrived at my undergraduate institution at the time in HBCU, and it was just so transformational, if you will. I didn't think I was fully prepared, but that institution met me where I was,
Yeah.
and it convinced me that I was brilliant, that I had a lot in me,
Hmm.
and it instilled so much confidence in me that by my junior year, I thought I could literally walk on water. And so that's what Morgan is all about. It's about meeting students wherever you are and making sure that you understand that you are standing on a very strong, solid foundation. And we are going to provide you with the support that you need
Right.
to climb
Yeah.
and to realize all of your brilliance. And so it's just so much that actually goes into the Morgan experience, right? And students that come here within 2 weeks, they just fall in love with the institution,
Yeah.
and they quickly understand that you have professors here who really, really care about them,
Right.
right? They give their students their cell phone numbers,
That's
you know,
amazing.
and they get so much joy in seeing that light bulb come on, in the same way as those professors got much joy in seeing the light bulb come on with who is now the president of Morgan State University when I was an undergrad.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it is quite amazing. I think it translates really well. If we walk around campus, that is what we hear from students is that, the faculty is invested, the president's invested,
Mm.
the staff is invested, and it makes a world of difference to the college experience. So as you look into what's next, you've been here for a while, you've
Yes, I
innovated
have.
quite a bit here at Morgan. What do you see as the future for Morgan State University? What big new ideas, academic programs do you see on the horizon?
Well, Morgan is fast becoming, in my view, the most what I call consequential university in the state of Maryland, and one of the most consequential universities in the nation, and a model for what it means to be a global, consequential, diverse, and inclusive university for the world.
Mm.
And that's the way I see the institution, right? Don't put Morgan State University in anyone's matchbox as a STEM. That's not who we are.
Right.
We don't even see a matchbox. We don't even see STEMs. We see an institution that, in a few short years, would be there rivaling the Ivy League, the Big Ten,
Right.
the University of Chicago, in terms of the type of experience that you will have here
Hmm.
that would be unmatched in the world.
Yeah.
And so the future for Morgan is one where the institution is going to be a model in terms of facilities, laboratories, the mindset of students who leave here,
Hmm.
and the fact that they are understanding all too well what they have been imbued with here and the expectation that they are leaving Morgan with.
Yeah.
And they will understand that they are coming to the institution during a certain moment in history in the United States.
That's for sure.
But their responsibility when they leave is to make sure that that moment does not become an era.
Yeah.
And they need to change those moments to make sure that their states, their cities, the nation, and the world, if it's not reflecting what they need it to reflect, that they are going to have the skill set to correct that.
Right, to make an impactful change.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Otherwise, the ancestors would not be pleased.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. They went through too much for them not to make the most of their experience
There's too
here.
much blood, sweat, and tears in this place, right?
Amen. Amen. So in closing, I just want to take a moment to kind of highlight the students one more time. You've said so much about them, but they really are what makes this university so incredible. So what impresses you the most about your students here at Morgan?
Oh, well, it's just seeing their growth, right? And seeing how mature they become. And so I start here at Morgan with every single incoming student to give them that tassel in the year in which I expect them to graduate.
Mhm.
So if this year was 2027, right? And so each one, they come across the stage and they personally get that tassel from me. And I look into their eyes and I can see this kind of thought, which is, what in the heck am I about to get into?
Right.
And I can see a little hesitancy, a little bit of unsureness about it. And so I walk the campus a lot and I stay in conversation with students. And I try and stay in a conversation with a student long enough, Desi, where the student will say something where in a very legitimate way, I can say, you know what, Desi, that was the most brilliant thing I have ever heard. And the student would look at me and say, but President Wilson, I said that. And I said, yeah, say it again.
Yeah.
And he said, I said that was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. So, and I'll say, have a good day. And so I'll leave and I look out of the corner of my eye and that student is still standing there. And that student is processing the fact that, wait now, President Wilson just said that he heard from me
Yeah.
one of the most brilliant things he has ever heard. And it's almost like that student will take off running. It's a different kind of mindset, right?
Mhm.
And so that's what we are building here at Morgan, a university that is hearing our students, is seeing our students,
Mhm.
and is exuding to students every single day. This is a university where you never, ever have to question at any time, does this university think I belong here?
Wow. Yeah. And that interaction with the president your first couple weeks in college, I can only imagine is transformative. Because not everybody can say that. Some people go to college for 4 years and never interact personally with the president. So
Well, I love my students.
Yeah.
I say that nationally. People are like, well, that's kind of Pollyannish. And say, no, it isn't. I really do love my students, and I love to see that growth, right? And so then to take that tassel moment and then bring it forward, and now we're on the stage, fully garbed academically, and they're coming across the stage, and I look in the distance and I can see the tears.
Yeah.
I hear the cheers from their families, right?
Mhm.
But I know what they have gone through in those 4 or 5 years,
Right.
and those are tears of joy. And we sit there on the stage and I shake their hands, they reach and shake their hands, and we understand all too well that path.
Right.
And some of those students, sometimes they'll come across stage and they'll grab me, and I'm not a huge person physically, and so it's like, just don't throw me off the stage.
Right. Be careful. Right.
But they're so happy,
And I'm telling you, it all makes sense because your students here have really just told incredible stories about what's going on at this university. And I can see now it all has started from the top and trickled down. And what you all are doing on campus is amazing. You're going to have an incredible episode of the college tour. And so I'm just so grateful that you took this time to have a little coffee with me.
Thank you very much. Desi.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. Cheers to Morgan. Growing the future, leading the world.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.